I've always wanted to live in London, even if it wasn't for uni.
Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Whine Wine series. This week, the first guest is going to be India.
Hi guys!
Yeah, I'm going to try to not go through all of it in the first 5 minutes because we have a very limited amount of our fake wine.
Okay.
So, India and I have been living in London for about 2 years now. So, we're not connoisseurs, but I feel like
It feels like we are.
yeah, we do know a little bit about the subject, so we thought it'd be interesting to give you guys our feeling about the city.
We have a lot of feelings.
I just touched my mic. It's probably not going to sound very good. For a little bit of context, India and I moved here for uni.
I've always wanted to live in London, even if it wasn't for uni, because, I mean, it's the most interesting place in England, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also the unis are good.
Do you feel like your expectations before moving here were more or less like met, or was it like completely different?
No, I actually do think it's been pretty much how I expected it to be.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously elements where I was like, oh, okay, a bit different. But no, I think in general, I think the expectations for uni in London were less met than living in London.
That's true. Like, I felt like it was gonna be more, I guess I had like the idea of like American uni, you know, of like campus, everyone together, all of that. And I feel like actually like going to uni in London can be like really isolating.
I agree, yeah. It's really, that's the thing that I've noticed the most is like when I visit my friends in unis like Newcastle and stuff, and Leeds, it's so different. Like it feels like you're at school. When I went to Newcastle to visit my friend, I stepped off the train and I only saw students.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. St. Andrews, I feel like, has the same vibe. Like they just have like 3 bars or something.
Yeah.
And wherever you go, like, you know. But I do feel like
that could get overwhelming in itself. You would feel too much in a bubble, I think.
Yeah.
Or I think I would. You wouldn't branch out as much.
Yeah.
And I feel like after uni would be a lot more difficult to adjust because you're so used to this like close community. Maybe this is better. It will help us to prepare for actually being adults.
Do you not feel like you missed out though?
Yeah, I mean, I did have a moment where I thought I wished it was more of a community, but I've kind of got over that now, I think. Tried to see the other end where we have benefits that everyone else doesn't. Like we're living in London.
So many people I think really struggle with like jobs, for example, and stuff like that. Like even like part-time or like even wondering what you're doing after uni. For most people,
for sure.
It means moving cities. Or I mean, we're already here, you know, like we've already been here. We know the city, we know how everything works and stuff.
And I know for a fact that everyone like that I know in Leeds, impossible to find a part-time job. Like you cannot find one. So many students are there
for such a small city.
Taken. You have endless work opportunities.
Honestly, like I've never heard of anyone saying like I can't find a part-time job. Like it's impossible.
You can always find a job, and you can do babysitting, you can do dog walking, you can do bartending, you work in a pub, and it's not just like, oh, there's a pub I could maybe work in. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and it's so easy to commute too.
I felt like also going into uni, I thought that if I were to get a job, it would have to be like within the uni, because obviously I didn't really know like how do I get a job in the UK. Like I've never had a job before, I don't know how this works and all of that. But then I've also realized that it's so impossible to actually get a job
in the uni
at your uni because the competition is so high. And that like honestly it's even, I would say it's better to actually find something outside because you actually meet people outside living in the quote unquote like real London without that like shelter of a university. Overall, do you feel like your experience at university so far has been like good? You would do it again?
I have no regrets for the uni that I chose or the course that I chose. I've really, really genuinely enjoyed my course. First of all, you know, it's great to say you go to UCL. But also like I think, you know, you do go into it and you obviously expect it's not going to be like any other university. You're in central London. It's a prestigious university. It's the most multicultural uni. Like, you know that it's going to be different to
anything you've experienced before. Yeah.
So I think when you have that expectation, like, you're kind of fine. Yeah, I wouldn't change it. I've really enjoyed it.
Should we chin chin?
Let's chin chin.
How have you felt about, you know, the prices?
Yeah.
London is known for being pricey.
Okay. Two things that I will say.
Yeah.
Rent is crazy. Rent is the biggest.
Definitely.
Like income. I'm paying £100 a week more than people in other universities, minimum.
Yeah.
I think when you're here, you get used to it. And then it means that when you hear everyone else's rent price, you're like, wow, that's so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, obviously it's not ideal, but when you get used to it, it almost becomes that when you go to everywhere else, it feels really cheap.
I feel like it's almost like scary because it's like almost like London brainwashes you into thinking it's normal to be spending this amount of money on the like transport, on rent, on anything, on the groceries. Oh my god.
But one thing that I did notice is, in some ways, obviously if you're smart with money, you can actually spend less, because when you're in London, you're so hyper aware that everything's so overpriced that you're more aware of what you're spending. What I noticed when I've gone out with my friends in Newcastle and Leeds, everything's so cheap. So you'll go out and you'll buy loads and loads of drinks because they're all really cheap. But actually, you'll end up spending more than what you would here, because you would, we all tend to pre-drink here because it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
That you end up spending less money.
It is really challenging, to be fair. Like, especially at first, like when you start seeing those like prices, like the money just leaving your wallet, literally, and you almost don't understand like, what have I done? Like, I feel like I'm not spending that much. Where is this actually going?
Is the biggest bitch for a random transaction coming out of your bank account. when you are already having the worst time, and then it's 1 a.m, you're crying about something, and you see £8
every night, £8.90. Thank you, TFL. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So it's like a basic, like, you haven't even done anything of your day yet, and you already know that £10 will be removed of your bank account no matter what you do. They will leave. Like,
and it's such small, like I'll come home and I'm like, oh, I didn't even spend that much today, and I'm like, oh, but I did. But how?
Yeah.
How have I done that?
I took the bus one time, the tube one time, and I had a sandwich, and that's it. Literally. And it's gone, £20. Yeah. I think it's also about like prioritizing what you really want to be doing with your money.
Yeah.
Because I mean, most people have a very limited amount, right? So you just have to pick your battles. If what you want out of university, you know, is I want to party hard every day, and that's who I am. Like, that's what I want to do, like socializing with people every single night. Of course, like, your money is going to go into that, you know, is going to go into the drinks, the cigarettes, the outfits, like everything that comes with it. Like, I feel like for me, like, it's not been about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather have like a good meal.
Yeah. It's like last year when I was a fresher and I was going out all the time and it was all about socializing and having fun, my meals were atrocious. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I would eat like ingredients.
Yeah.
Like, because I would much rather my money went on me having fun. I was still eating and I was still getting my nutrients in. But it would be like, I don't mind not having salmon and like nice food and going out to eat and stuff.
Yep.
But my money is, whereas now I'm going out less, so I can afford to cook myself nicer meals, and I can afford to get myself coffees in the day. I can afford to go out for a meal occasionally.
Yeah, it's just different. Like,
it just depends what you would rather. Since I've been working, I feel so much more fulfilled.
I feel like you get a high.
You do. I got paid today. It was great.
Oh, lucky.
I know.
I'm waiting. I'm getting paid in a week. I'm just waiting, counting the days.
Because I've noticed, I obviously thought working would mean I have less time to do things. I have the exact same amount of time.
Yeah.
It's because I'm using my time more efficiently now.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh, like, Alex, like, how do you have time to do all these things? It's like, you have the same amount of time in the day that I do. It's just that you feel like you don't.
Yeah.
Because it's filled with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't see those hours go by. Whereas, like, for me, like, every single hour of my day has a genuine purpose.
every hour you can designate something. Whereas when you have such endless open space and you know you've got to get things done, it's so much harder to like
actually
use
get
that time
things done.
properly.
Because you're like, oh, I can do it later. I have so much time.
And then that time disappears.
Literally gone.
It just disappears. Like, again, like we were saying earlier, working in London, it's outside of uni, you meet a whole different circle.
Yep.
You introduce yourself to another part of London that you wouldn't necessarily be in. Like, you're in South Kensington, I'm in Carnaby, Soho. It's great. It's like, I wouldn't be coming here if it wasn't for this job.
I think last year I must have gone to South Kensington like 2 times, and both times it was like to go into a museum, so I didn't even go see outside.
Exactly.
Like, it does really open, and it forces you, you know?
Forces you,
Or like last year I worked in Shoreditch, and I wouldn't even know what Shoreditch is right now if I hadn't worked there like every week for 8 months. Like, when you're on a campus all day, like, you're still like very isolated from the real world. Whereas I feel like a part-time job has given me the opportunity of seeing, you know, and it's like you said, like, you talk to quote unquote like real people. Yeah. Like, you interact with people that have been working, you know, that
their life in London isn't just university.
No.
This is one thing I love about London is you could live here for 50 years and you will never do everything.
No.
There is always
there's a quote of like, when you get bored of London, you get bored of life. Yeah. You know? So obviously, you've heard the news. TfL is now the most expensive transport in the world. Woohoo!
Oh my god. As if it wasn't already really expensive. One thing I will say though, I have an Oyster card linked to my rail card.
Yeah.
That gets me tube prices for the price of a bus fare.
But it's only off peak.
Yes.
Which I thought was the biggest scam ever.
Yeah.
Like, because I got it, because obviously everyone's like, oh my god, you know, like the service card, no. I pay for it. The Oyster card is £7.
I know.
And then obviously you need to have the rail card, 16.25, which is another like 30 quid a year or something. Which, I mean, anyway, I would have had that. So that's not that big of an issue. But like, for example, those £7, I feel like I still have not made those £7 back, you know? And when I found out about, because I didn't see it anywhere that it said that it was off peak.
I know.
And I was so confused. I was like, am I being gaslit to right now?
I know.
Like, what is going on? Especially because, like, for students, really, you can lower it all the time.
I know. I remember when I noticed, because I was like, oh, I don't think this is reduced prices.
No.
And then I realised, but normally I'm not travelling peak time.
Really?
My work finishes at around 8 p.m. And obviously that's not typical commuting time.
Yeah, and uni?
Uni, I walk to uni.
Ah, yes. The walking.
I've started walking a lot because I was noticing how much money was getting taken every single day. The bus, for example, takes pretty much the exact amount of time. So I understand transport when it's, you know, time efficient or if it's obviously really far away. But like my walk to uni is about 30 minutes. So if I walk to uni and back, that's my exercise like done. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
I don't feel like I need to be doing anything. No more times coming out of my day because the time would have been the same on the bus.
How long would have? Yeah, I was gonna ask. Like,
it's
how
the same
big
because
of a
it's
difference?
so busy on the roads, like especially Euston Road and Camden Road, Mornington Crescent area.
Yeah.
So much traffic all the time that it doesn't take less time whatsoever. And on the way home from uni, sometimes I'll cave and get the bus, and then I'm like, why did I get the bus? Like, it's actually worse because a lot of the time, because my uni campus bus stop is Tottenham Court Road, so many people are on that bus that you can't even sit down. It's like, well, it's taking me probably longer. I can't sit down anyway.
Yeah.
So why have I just paid for this?
Have you considered cycling?
I have. In fact, one of my housemates does cycle to uni, but I'd like to walk. It clears my head. Put some music on. I feel safe as well. That's the other thing about biking.
That's one thing. Because like back in Spain, I would bike everywhere. Like, you would not catch me going anywhere without like a bike. Because in Barcelona, there's a great like electric bike system that you can just run out, and it's so cheap. That's like the main thing. It's like it would cost me more to take the metro than to just grab a bike. Whereas And then I moved here, and I was like, oh well, I'll just do the same thing here. Like, it's London, it's an even bigger city, even more developed.
Yeah.
They must have the same system on. And then they just didn't. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how do you not have bikes available everywhere for everyone to use? That's so weird. And they kind of have like the like Santander bikes,
Lime
but
bikes.
I feel like it's kind of bad. And then the Lime bikes are so expensive.
Lime bikes are so expensive, and also you can't park them everywhere. So you might go all the way home only to realize you can't even park it there.
No, so you still have to walk.
Yeah. Obviously, I love to Lime bike as an activity. It's great if you want to, do something with your day and the sun is shining and you can bike to, say, Primrose Hill. That's one thing I will say. Because of the tube system, you feel like everything's so far away from each other. The minute you start walking to places, you actually realize how close everything is. Obviously, it still takes a while to walk to places, but you do realize that everywhere's connected and it isn't just like you have to take the underground everywhere.
I think for me, one thing is like, I mean, TFL, like, yep. But it is quite cool to think, like, every once in a while, it hits you, like, you're sat in your commute and you're like, oh my God, like, this is like the transport, that like so many people are like taking pictures with and stuff, because it's literally so famous. And back in the days when I used to be a tourist and I used to visit London, I was that, like, I would be posing in front of like the big like red like circle and be like, ooh, like, I'm so cool, like, I'm here, like, I'm in London, I'm using the metro.
And you're like, I am a London commuter. Yeah, it's very easy to get used to these things, but then it will hit you and you're like, hang on.
We take so many things for granted.
Like, even the metro, like, it's so iconic.
Yeah.
And like, you'll occasionally walk past a landmark and you're like, wait a second, like, I'm just casually walking past this.
Smooth change of topic.
Okay.
Landmarks. Because London is full of them.
Full of landmarks.
Full of them. Do you feel like you actually get to see them like on a weekly basis, let's say? Like, we're talking Trafalgar Square, London Eye, the Big Ben.
Obviously, Big Ben, Westminster, London Eye is all in like Strand. Oh, what's the area? Embankment area. So I don't personally see that area of London too much because I'm not really there. But I mean, I guess it depends on what you're counting as landmarks. Because personally, I would count Oxford Street.
Oxford Street is a landmark, definitely.
Which I see twice a week.
You see, I never see Oxford Street.
Yeah. See, I'm, just for work, I walk through Regent Street, Oxford Street, Carnaby Street, and Soho. And that's like...
That's a crazy walk.
Yeah, a crazy
walk. That's very intense.
And if you're bored in Bloomsbury, you can just turn the corner, 5 minutes. You can go to the British Museum.
The British Museum, that's another thing. How is it right there?
I know. Like, it is just there. And then a 15-minute walk, you've got the National Gallery.
Yep.
Trafalgar Square. So famous.
You walk another 10 minutes and you're in Big Ben.
Yeah.
I love the parks in London.
Yes, the parks. Oh my God.
Because they're also landmarks,
like Primrose Hill.
St. James Park.
Yeah.
Like, they're crazy.
Regent's
and
Park.
Obviously Hyde Park, but...
Yeah.
Like...
Hyde Park, honestly, not even the best. I used
overrated.
To go... Regent's Park was my go-to last year because walking distance...
A lot of people love it. Yeah.
Walking distance, I used to go and journal there in term 3 when we didn't have any lectures. I feel like London, like, everyone thinks, oh, it's so, like, urban and there's so many buildings and it's so concrete, but there are parks everywhere.
I was quite surprised. I went to Paris a couple of weeks ago. You guys know that because you've watched the vlog. And with Max, we were so surprised. We're like, where are the trees? Yeah. Like, where are the parks? Because I always complain that I don't feel like there's enough trees in the streets in London, because, like, how hard could it be to just put some streets on the pavement? But actually, like, compared to other major cities...
And people say, oh, what's the point in living in London if you're going to live in the other zones? But that is the point. It's like you're still able to be in central London on a tube ride.
Yeah, like 20 minutes.
But you can not be in the busy hubbub, and you can also afford it as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the feeling of, like, taking your bra after a day. It's like... Ooh, like, when I get home in my little Zone 2 space, I am so happy. like all of a sudden there's like 3 people in the streets, you know, my kebab shop, like my Sainsbury's, and that's it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else, and I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Like, it's so like relaxing, and I think the prices also do change a lot.
Oh my
the
god,
zones.
Insanely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know what it is in Zone 5.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Got no idea. But
Dagenham. It's where my phone ended up when it got snatched.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
Swift change of topic.
Yeah, actually. Safety in London.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
All in all, I have actually felt relatively safe. Like, this is my personal account. Obviously, you're aware that you're in London. You need to be careful. So, but I've actually felt more safe because it's so busy all the time that
there
are always people about. Whereas when I'm at home and it's literally dead at past 10 p.m, it's quite a weird feeling walking around thinking, if something were to happen to me right now, no one would know about it.
Yeah.
In London, even if there was no one around, you could shout, people would hear you. Like, you're always kind of in an area where there are people about. Yeah. Obviously things happen, but things do happen everywhere. It just feels like it's worse here because it's more frequent.
Yeah, it's a lot more
frequent. So you just, it is a luck game.
But you know, like, actually, the statistics do say that the safety in London has increased over the last couple of years. Like, it has gotten safer.
Because, you know, these things do happen in other cities. It's just less talked about.
Well, it's not as interesting because London is not in the headline.
Exactly. Like it's not like, oh, a stabbing in London. Yeah, but stabbings happen everywhere. And the only reason it's more prolific is just because it's bigger.
There's more people.
Yeah. I feel like people think you come to London, you're going to get stabbed if you walk around.
You know, yeah, like, I've talked to some international students that were telling me that they were like, oh my god, like I was so scared of going out because I got told that London is so unsafe.
It's not true.
Yeah.
You do learn things. Like, the one thing I've learned is never give eye contact. Ever. Because the minute you
in the tube as well. Yeah. That's it. Like, you're cooked.
I think, actually, obviously I have been lucky, but I think because you're so aware that these things happen in London, you are more careful. When I'm out in London, I rarely buy a drink, and I never leave it unattended, and I never leave it so it's, you know, in a situation where someone could put something in it.
Yeah.
Because you are so aware that these things happen. Whereas maybe when I'm at home, I'm like, oh, it's safe here. I'll just, you know, put my phone in my back pocket, leave my drink unattended, and it can happen. It can still happen there. But you're just less vigilant. Yeah, like at my work, people get their phone stolen. But that's because they're not Londoners. They've put their phone in their back pocket. They're in a busy shop in the middle of London.
Exactly. Like, it is about, like, awareness. Mm-hmm. Like, and even if you're aware, for example, I mean, I was very aware of the phone snatching, and it still happened to me. I was still, like, thinking carefully, like, okay, like, let me put it in my bag so that it's not out for people to see it and grab it. But it still happens, you know, and sometimes you just really can't do anything about it. Like, you have to be careful, and that's as far as really you can go.
And if these things happen, it's just bad luck. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, don't let it deter you from living here. Because I said I was moving to London, everyone's like, oh, so dangerous, so, like, busy, so, like, it's really not, guys. Like, it's really chill.
You get used to it as well.
But I think you just have to be aware of these things before coming, and then when you are here, be aware of it, and then you'll realize it's really, really not that bad. And it's definitely not something you should be worrying about every day. Like, things happen, shit happens, but it's not your fault if you're doing things to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah.
But this can happen everywhere. Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, India, for joining me today for the first episode of Whine Wine. We're going to have one episode a month. Every month will be a different topic. Today was London. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the next one will be.
See.
Subscribe, like, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.